Hey everybody, it's Bruce with Nature Calls, and I'm out playing with the Hilleberg Nammatj 3 GT. From what I've seen in all my forums and Facebook groups and all that, there's something about this tent that a lot of people rely on it. It's kind of the tent that has all the bells and whistles, or if Hilleberg is listening and people say they want a big sturdy tent. So they made this in their black label line. They've got different levels, black labels that are like expedition level. They use Curlon 1800, which is their fabric. They use 10 millimeter tent poles. They use 3 millimeter lines. They use the heavier duty stakes. But there's like, okay, people, they say we want like the toughest tent there is, so we can go out in the nasty weather. But we don't want it to weigh a lot. So we want a 3 or 4 person tent or a 2 person tent. So you do have like the Caron, which is similar, but it doesn't have the slant back. So they wanted to make it as light as they could, but still have that real expedition Caron type of tent. So you have the slant back Nammatj. So it's definitely lighter. I think this is just under 9 pounds for this whole tent, this 3 person tent with the vestibule, with the bags, with the poles, with the stakes, with the spare pole. So it's pretty light really when you look at like an expedition tent. It's definitely a 3 person tent. And then people want, then the Caron, which is the next size up from these Nammatj. They're so long that they might not necessarily fit. So they wanted, a tent that could fit. So the Nammatj kind of hits that as well. It's a real nice bag that it comes in. It's got a handle, little things you can clip on stuff. All the poles that they come with and the stakes are all scaled up to the black label level. So they're the heavier duty stakes, which are the Y stakes, very much like the MSR groundhog stake. And so they're very nice, and they give you plenty of stakes. I think they give you 22. And the poles are also the 10 millimeter poles. And if you ever want to research out their poles and how they do their poles, and actually like the whole company itself, they have these are the DAC Featherlight MSL green. So the company DAC, where they get their poles, are ecologically minded, and so is Hilleberg. They reuse everything that they have. They try and put, use as minimal amount of so there's no waste, and then they use other things for everything, stuff sacks to marketing materials. They use it all, which is really cool. These are the 10 millimeter poles, and all the poles are all the same length. And if there's going to be damage in your tent, if you're going to have a failure in your tent, many times it's the poles, and not making sure that they're all put together completely. And this being the GT, you'll have 3 poles. Very nice. And in this bag right here, a spare section of pole, plus they have a repair sleeve. So, and that's all a part of their total weight. With the Nammatj, it is one of those slant backs where your foot end is, and so one of the issues with these slant backs is that if the wind presses down on that slanted back, if that's the wind end, it's going to press the tent right down onto where your feet are. The Nammatj is very well designed for condensation, but if you do get some kind of condensation, you need to have that ventilation space. So if you can, I would put the door end, which is this end, into the wind, so the wind's flowing straight down the tunnel tent. And that's how tunnel tents are designed. You could put the foot end into the wind, but I would suggest putting the GT vestibule and the door end into the wind, so the wind is going that direction. Now on the ends you have these adjustment straps, and see how those come into play later. They've got a nice little ring on the bottom of it, so you take your stake and kind of at a slight angle, you can see the seam, and you want to put those stakes all the way in until they're almost into the ground. You don't want them any higher than that. You want them down so it's getting as much stake at a 45-degree angle as you can. So now with that end staked down, so like I always do, is I kind of make believe that I'm in a bad situation. So I'd want to have that staked down. Now I'm going to slip the poles in these nice sleeves. And these sleeves are a little bit heavier duty. I think they're 70D. It's like the same material that they use on their bathtub floor. So I've got it about halfway across, so now I'm going to pull this end until it goes into this little cup, heavy vinyl cup on that other end over there. We find our little cup down here. Place the pole in that cup, and this cup's big enough and this sleeve is big enough, so if you wanted to get 2 sets of poles, you could. That'd be a really extreme situation where you need 2 poles. You can see how nice they sew everything. It's just, if anybody's ever watched my channel, you know I like to sew things, and I've learned a ton from Hilleberg and how they sew things. It's just so nicely done. They actually have air jets that cool the needles, so when the needles are going really fast, they've got to create friction and heat, of course. And with this type of nylon type material, that it's like it'll make that hole too big. So they cool those jets so that it's minimal holes as possible. Down here you have this heavy vinyl cup, and you have to make sure your poles all the way down in that cup, like that, all the way down. I have all 3 poles in. So now what you can do is just kind of lift it up, set it down, and then peg it out. Now it's not like horrible weather, so I can kind of go around and just kind of get it set. Start tightening up these straps. At the bottom of each of these poles, there's a strap to put in a stake. And of course, if you're out doing expedition stuff, you're going to be staking all this down. And one thing I do know, when I had it was a Nammatj 2, it was important to stake these out. It helps. You'll see that the inner tent is very important in here. Let's go ahead and show you the inner tent from this end. So the inner tent is right here, and so the key is to have this outer tent off of this inner tent. Actually, so you know, I could just stake out the inner tent and roll that back. There you can see the inner tent, and you can see how far off you want to keep that tent and how far off these little clips right here help. You can see that they already have these guy lines, and they're on this really nice webbing that's all integrated into the pole setting, and they have done so much research. Of course, they've done tons of research on all this stuff, but I just love where they put things. I just love where they put their guy lines. They've figured it out, they've tested it. Of course, this is all expedition stuff, so it's been tested like crazy. But now we're going to go ahead and stake all these guy lines out, because that really holds that tent down. And that's what you want. You want these to hold the tent down. You don't want to, it all works in concert. The engineering is just amazing. Right here off the door though, I'm going to have the lines over to the side a little bit. But then you want to tighten these down. You don't want to tighten them down so you're squashing the the arc, the natural arc of your poles. But you can put these lines anywhere, and they're all around the tent. So let's go ahead and I'll stake all those out, and we'll definitely stake out this front vent because we're going to get into the whole vent situation. This has a wire in it, so we can. All this goes into. So here's the wind flow. God, it's such a nice tent. Got it all set up now. Let's take a little walk around. So this would be the front or vestibule end. There we got the nice big scoop, ventilation scoop. And those Vectran lines, I think those are the 3mm they use on the black labels. Super strong, and they're super tight weave, so they don't gain water. And here's the foot end. You can kind of see that shadow in there. That's the inner in there. And so it's real important that that's staked out to keep that from squashing down if the wind hits it. But they've got such a nice distance, they've figured that out. Here we have the door, and one of the things about the doors, these doors, you can zip it up from the bottom like you'd expect, you know, that direction, like that. Then they also have, or say you're in snow and you don't want those snow drifts to be coming into your tent, or the snow's built up, and so you can actually zip the door down a little bit further, or depending, you know, wherever the snow level is, you know, and so you're not, so the snow could be right to here and you're walking in the tent. So a two-way door, you know, it hits that. It also has this real nice rain flap that goes over the door. Now another thing people like, especially in the summer, is they want a lot of mosquito netting. And so you have an inner door with mosquito netting. I mean, so this tent has that. You know, this tent's kind of like, you know, the Charon, let's put the Charon in like the Rolls Royce level. The Nammatj is more like a Jeep Grand Cherokee or a Land Rover. It's got all the bells and whistles, but it's not too little, but it's not too much. You definitely want to keep the doors and zippers as clean as possible all the time. So there, if it's summer, you can have this ventilation happening and you can have this door open. Just sweet. See, they got a little bag on the inside here now. So you can put your bug net into this little bag in here. That's kind of cool. Definitely one of the neater things about these GT style tents is you've got this huge amount of room up here for your gear or your dog or whatever. I mean, you could have a person sleep up in here. It's so big, it's just massive. One of the biggest things with any of these tents, especially I know in the winter, is ventilation. Now right here you have, this is a breathable piece of black cloth here. It'll keep snow drifts from coming in. But you can unzip that. It has a little tab. Then again, you've got bug net, so you can still have this in the summer, but that unzips as well. So if you're really having a problem with condensation, you can unzip that as well, or just zip this black breathable piece up and get all this really nice ventilation coming through. One of the biggest things about Hilleberg tents is that it has the inner suspended on the outer, so when you put it up, it brings the inner up all together. Then you have this inner tent suspended in the outer, and that's a good, 5 inches or so up here. So what happens if you have any condensation or anything coming up, it comes up and hits this waterproof curl-on up here, and then it will just go down and drip back into the ground. And this fabric here, this yellow fabric, has a DWR, or a durable water repellent, on it, but it will it'll still shed water off. So here in a 4-season tent, you'd have the sides of the tent coming all the way to the ground. In a 3-season tent, you'd have those sides up a little bit for more ventilation and more weight loss. Here we have this big D door. And here we have the interior of it. Turn you down a little bit. Now in here we have it's a 3-person tent, so usually that's based on like 20 inches wide, so like 60 inches wide. I'll put all the specs down below, but it's not a nice big tent. It's got great headroom. Some of the other tents are a little bit shorter, so that's another thing with the Nammatj. They hit that. We need more room. You have a clothesline up here, a really nice bathtub floor, and I've seen actually pictures of these tents in water. These bathtub floors are perfect, great floors. So now again you have ventilation, massive amounts of ventilation. So this first triangle gets you to the bug net. And then in the winter, of course, you don't need bug net, so you can bring this whole triangle down, get tons of ventilation. Then again, you have in the back here that same window that you can either get from the outside or the inside. You can open this up, but here you can get lots and lots of ventilation. That's probably the biggest thing I know when I'm doing my snow hiking is you're wet. You've got a lot of wet, so you have this nice breathable interior, get lots of ventilation going on, and you're going to be doing pretty good. We also have little pockets in here, like most tents, to put your flashlights, headlamps. Really love clotheslines. It just helps. Real nice, but it does slant in the back. So if you have a tent, if you have a sleeping bag, your feet are going to be hitting on this. So that's where you really want to work that ventilation and keep the condensation way down. And I'm back to the 4-season, 3-season thing. So in the 4-season, you're going to have this yellow inner fabric all the way so you can close this door up. Then you can, from the inside, you have the ability to take that down, and you've got bug netting, so you're going to keep that ventilation going during the summer. Just beautiful. Another great thing about this inner is that if it's really soaking wet, you can take this whole inner part down, or if you need more room, or if you just need like a cook tent or something like that, you can take this whole inner out and pack it away into something dry, and then you can go out and you can take the rest of your tent down if it's like full of rain. Or they've got an option where you can get this all in mosquito netting, so you can get a mesh inner. You can also get a footprint for it. So it's amazing what you can do, and you can use this yellow inner tent by itself as a tent, and it does have the DWR on it. So if you know the weather's going to be good and you don't want to take this whole thing, you can just take the inner tent, and they've got an adapter kit for that. All right, so there you have it, the Hilleberg Nammatj 3 GT, so the extended vestibule model. A lot of people just love this tent, and it's funny, it's like people say, what's the most popular tent? I would definitely put the whole Nammatj line as a favorite, especially over there in Europe where the guys are going up on those hills with no protection. Definitely see a lot of these over there. So great tent. It's hitting all those marks. It's lightweight for this style of tent. Under 9 pounds, and that's your stakes, your poles, your lines, your spare poles, the inner tent, the outer tent, the stuff sack. It's all in there. So if you had 2 guys, you could split that up pretty easily. If you had a pulk, you could do that. Or if you're just strong, you can bring this tent. But it will definitely take it. The poles are that nice sturdy 10 millimeter. You can double pole it, and you can do lots of options. But real super nice tent. If you want to know more about the Curl-On, which is just an amazing fabric, it's super slick. That's one thing I notice when I'm in the snow, is the snow just can't stick to it. It just slides right off. So it's a triple impregnated silicone, but just the fabric itself is so strong that even if you did get a cut in it, it won't tear. So it's just incredibly built stuff. Tons of people love it, swear by it. Expedition people that go to like Antarctica or the poles or Everest, they stake their lives on these tents. So, all right, well, I hope that was somewhat informative. I'm losing my light, but if you have any questions, I'm going to take some 360 photos of the inside. If you'd like to see those, let me know. But all right, hope to see you out on the trail. Bye now.